Friend said she came down to drink mojitos and catch some sun.
Well, it looks like something caught her.
He died hours before this accident ever happened.
So our accident is not an accident at all.
No matter how you cut it, divorce sucks.
Frank, it's a killer.
In the early 2000s, the popularity of CSI crime scene investigation and subsequently CSI Miami led to a phenomenon that prosecutors called the CSI effect. Even if you're too young to have watched originally, you're probably familiar with Horatio, the main detective in CSI Miami, and his intro stings. When she went to her book signing, she didn't realize she'd be writing the last chapter of her life. My hair's kind of messed up from all that rocking I did. Certain prosecutors reported that they felt that jurors were less likely to convict in cases that didn't include some element of forensic evidence. So if they were relying solely on witness testimony or circumstantial evidence, it seemed that they were less likely to get a conviction than if they had included some element of forensic evidence, like ballistics or hair or fiber analysis, something with a microscope. One report I read said that after the rise in popularity of CSI, jurors were way more likely to ask about things like mitochondrial DNA and latent fingerprints. Recent surveys suggest that this is not or is no longer a major factor for jurors. More recent reports have stated that it doesn't seem that the absence of forensic evidence is impacting current cases. But for many fans, CSI laid the groundwork for our future true crime consumption. It also established in a lot of us, I think, a wholehearted belief in forensic evidence. If you can present evidence like DNA or ballistics, stuff that seems so scientific, that must be unimpeachably correct, right? Like, that is the gold standard of evidence. Of course, there was a lot on the show that was just on the show to be interesting and move the plot along. It's not like CSI was trying to be a perfect representation of forensic science in the early 2000s. There was a lot in the show that seemed silly to me, even as a 15-year-old. Like a lot of detective shows, why do they never turn the goddamn light on? They're looking for clues in a house that has electricity, and they're still just sticking to flashlights. They don't want to kill the mood during their investigation. They're also very conspicuously never wearing any kind of protective clothing. We need to know how hot these scientists are, so we have another layer of confidence in their scientific methods.
Science is good science.
Hot science is good science. Write that down. Okay. Everything else, like forensic ballistics, hair analysis, bite marks, I took it all as gospel. And it turns out that a lot of forensic science is junk science. A lot of the episodes of CSI rely on forensic examination techniques that were in use at the time and have since been thoroughly debunked. Take this scene from an episode of CSI Miami entitled Spring Break that aired originally in 2003. Once again, for copyright reasons, we will not be showing you the actual clip, but we'll be lovingly reproducing it ourselves. In this episode, a young spring breaker is discovered deceased on the beach. She has bite marks on her thigh.
Shark!
It would be a very small shark. The detective says this is either a tiny shark or a very bad man. So they take an impression of the bite mark, and then they are going to go and compare this bite mark to the suspects. When the bite marks don't fit Horatio's prime suspect, he has a hunch about what's really going on. And it is a shocking conclusion that he draws. But he's always right. This is a lab coat.
Right. And I look awesome.
Horatio.
Inconclusive.
Afraid so. You've got more points of concordance than before.
Wait a second, hold on a second. This is dissonance. Does he wear crowns?
Doesn't present that way. And temps would have come off when we took impressions.
Unless he's been doing a little in-home dentistry. Let's find out. Stand up, kid, stand up.
You're gonna have to let me go, aren't you?
Not yet. Smile for me.
What?
Smile! Ah, you have an overbite. You wear crowns?
No.
No. See, I think you do. I think that you wear temporary crowns in your upper right cuspid and bicuspid.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No? Do you take them out before each attack? Do you put them back on with dental cement when the police get onto you? Smile for me again. Let me give you a little help. Whoops! Now it matches. You're under arrest for the sexual assault of Amy Gould.
The National Academy of Science published a report in 2009 that called into question a lot of forensic science and called out bite mark identification, specifically saying that, one, it's not scientifically clear that teeth are as reliable as fingerprints, that they're as unique as your fingerprints, and two, it's also not clear that human skin is a reliable way for teeth marks to be preserved. Flesh moves around, it deteriorates. It's obviously not a foolproof way to record someone's bite mark. According to the Innocence Project, 26 people have been wrongfully convicted based on bite marks. Looking back, there were so many scenes in CSI where they're looking at evidence where it seems like their investigative approach just makes intuitive sense to a layperson. Like, of course, a bullet is going to have striations on it that are markings left by the inside of the gun as the bullet is fired from the chamber. You just have to fire another bullet and look at those bullets next to each other and see if the markings line up. Boom, there you got evidence that it's a bullet from that gun. But can you be so sure? The National Institute of Science and Technology has pointed out that if two guns were made at the same factory, not far apart, there's a good chance that they would make the same types of striations on a bullet. So the idea that someone can testify to the fact that this gun was, without a doubt, used to fire this bullet, and it couldn't be any other gun anywhere, is totally not scientifically valid. I sound like a Valley girl. Is not scientifically valid.
Totally.
Totally. The President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology has stated that firearms analysis currently falls short of the criteria for foundational validity. The idea that DNA isn't totally reliable first came to me via a podcast called Unresolved that covers the case of Arpana Janaga, a 24-year-old woman who was murdered in 2008. It comes up in the podcast that one of the suspects has DNA at the murder scene. But then another expert comes in to say, guess what? DNA ends up everywhere all the time. It's not really that meaningful that someone's DNA was at a crime scene. According to researcher Roland van Oorschot, DNA can be transferred simply by touching things. Anything you touch goes on to carry your DNA to wherever that thing goes. It's called secondary transfer, and it's disgusting.
Ew.
An article that I found on the Marshall Project mentions that an attorney named Aaron Murphy calculated that the average person sheds enough skin cells to cover a football field in 2 minutes.
That's gross.
It's really disgusting. In the same article, I found a stat that revealed we are all basically geysers of saliva. If you sit and talk for 30 seconds, your saliva could be found as far as a yard away, so 3 feet, all the way to the microwave. If you're interested in faulty forensic science, I really recommend reading articles from the Marshall Project and the Innocence Project. During my recent rewatch of CSI, 2 things really stood out to me. One, it's not a very good show. I don't know why we were all so into it. And if you rewatch it through the lens of everything we know now about forensic science, it becomes a story about Detective Horatio Caine putting a ton of innocent people in prison based on his bullshit forensic science. Basically, the world of forensics is just not as certain as we thought it was. Like so much in life, we have to learn to live with uncertainty. Hit it here just once, it's like a tip. Here.
Yeah.
Ow!
Sorry.